Good morning. Good morning to you. This is my walk and talk. Something I do every weekday morning where I just explore somewhere, walk somewhere, and while I'm doing it, I talk about all the things that I'm thinking about. And I got a lot of stuff in my brain. So it's kind of fun to actually finally get it out. My name is Ann Ferguson, and I am an author. I am a mommy of 5 really, really awesome kids. I'm a grandma, and I miss my grandbabies. I haven't seen them for a little bit. Maybe this weekend is what I'll do. See if they can come over maybe tomorrow night. That would be fun. We're talking about loving behavior. There is a book that I found 15 years ago called In the Meantime by Iyanla Vanzant. It was so good. And in her workbook, companion to that, there was a thing that, it's a loving behaviors list. And I have taken that loving behaviors list, and every single day for the past 5 or 6 days, we're just going one by one in each of those behaviors and see if we can figure this out. See if we can go, oh, that's what I missed. I totally experienced that today because of what we're talking about. I love how God gives me like an experience right as I'm listening or looking and trying to figure something out. He'll give me something to go, oh, that's what that means. I get it. Okay. Today, we are talking about renegotiating agreements. So in our loving behavior, let's kind of go through it, right? You got to know what you want, what you would love. You got to not make yourself wrong for the fact that you would love something. Number 2, ask for exactly what you want. Tell the truth about what you want. If you want to know what those are, go back and watch the last few lives. Then we need to be very clear about what other people's expectations of us are. Oh, first, we've got to get clear if it's what you want, what your expectations of others who involved are. So for me, walking and talking, this is just about me, right? This isn't anybody else. But this morning, I had to drive my kid to work. So to get going, I had to have some expectations set of him so that I could get what I wanted. So we had to have some clear agreements yesterday. He did much better today. Then we have to get really clear about what others' expectations are of us so that we know how to operate, right? Then, yesterday, we have to tell the truth. We have to tell the truth about whether or not we can meet the expectations of others, the ones that they have of us. So here's how it goes, right? I know what I want. I'm going to ask for what I want. I'm going to tell you what I would love you to do because you're involved in this. Would you be willing to help me? I'm going to listen to what your expectations of me are, and I'm going to tell the truth about whether or not I think I can handle that. That's where we are. Next one. When you find out that you can't, now we got to renegotiate. There was a question that came up yesterday. Somebody reached out to me and said, all of this is really good, but what if the other person does not even let you share what your side of this is, like what your agreement would be, what you expect of them? What if they just shut you down and shut you down and shut you down and wear you down to the point that just to stop the conversation, you just say, whatever, let's go to bed. Or fine. You just say fine. But you're not actually committed in your heart. Have any of you ever had a relationship where your voice was completely invalidated and didn't matter? I'm going to do me too. Put your hands up if you have. It's really hard to negotiate that, right? So in my case, I was in a long-term relationship with somebody who knew everything and had decided that I knew nothing. And had decided that I always needed to be trained and taught, and his way was always the superior way. My way was not, and I was just kind of flawed because I didn't get it. He actually told people about me that I wasn't very smart. I was cute. I was a good little dancer, and I was a good mom, but I wasn't very smart. The reason why he thought that is because he never listened to my ideas, my approach, my way. Why? Because it was different than his perspective. And that felt threatening. And his self-esteem was pretty low. And so to be able to let somebody else have their opinion and perspective without competition. Guys, that is the biggest thing in this whole situation. If you are in a competitive relationship with someone where it's always, I win, you lose, I get what I want, you don't get what you want, my way, your way, we are not engaged in loving behavior. Now you can try, and you can say, I would really love you to stop and listen to me for a minute. Now there are people that can't even hear that much. They will talk over you, and they will tell you all of the reasons. If you've ever been in a relationship where there's kind of a problem, and they're telling you all the problem, and you're really trying to enter the conversation and explain your perspective or your side, there are some people that take your explanation as you're arguing with them. And why? Because they're actually in a combative zone. They're not in a place of cooperation. And so they can't hear the cooperating. See, whatever's inside of us, that's what reflects out. So my suggestion to that is becoming very, very aware of that. So you could do a bunch of little social science experiments. And rather than feeling shut down and bad, it sucks. It honestly sucks to be shut down and to feel not heard and then to feel controlled because they want you to do it their way. And it's like not even safe to say that you want to do it your way, because then they'll go all off and they'll be crazy on you. And you've just got to kind of stay quiet, make them think that you agree. Well, the problem is then they can accuse you of not keeping your agreements. That's what happened with me. Is that I would try to say, yes, but let's consider this. What I was told is, why do you always have to be so negative? Why do you always have to bring up all the reasons why it's not possible? I used to believe that I was super negative. I did. I totally bought into it. Except I wasn't negative to anybody else. I could totally work with other people. Watch that. If there are other relationships that are not exhibiting the same behavior, you don't feel the same way, it might not be you. When you enter those relationships and you're kind of in this, let's get clear, and your voice is never heard, you need to take a step back and go, wait a minute. Do I feel seen? Do I feel heard? And then the next step is to go, did I try to be seen? Did I try to be heard? Right? Because if you tried and you weren't, it might not be you. Now let me tell you why this is such a big deal, guys. And why it's so scary. This is a denial. Like if you're in a relationship that's like this, it's really hard to get out of the belief that it's you. And this is why. If it is you, you have control because you can change you. You can do better. You can do what they ask. If it's all about you, then you're the one who needs to make the relationship better. If you just tried harder and were more obedient and were more agreeable and positive, it's all you. So we get stuck in this really toxic thing. My hardest bravest, most courageous moment is when I took a real look at myself, my preparation in a conversation, my willingness to sit and listen to their side patiently, even though I was spinning, my ability to say, okay, but what about, and then have that shut down. I had to see it. Oh, the most courageous thing I ever did was to admit it wasn't all me. Why is that courageous? Because if it's not all you, you don't have control. All you have is choice. Because when it's right in front of your face, you go, okay, I see this, and it's not all me, which means there's got to be some give on that side. And if you're in relationship with somebody who's not willing to see themselves ever, look at that too. How often do you evaluate your behavior in yourself? How often does the other person evaluate your behavior instead of their own? When you are willing to become aware, you can then make some choices about what you would love to do. That doesn't necessarily mean leave. But now you can bring it to God. And you say, God, this is what I was told about me. It doesn't feel right. I'm willing to change if it's me. But I need it to come from you. I need you to define me. I need you to help me. I need you to perfect me. If this is not me, stand with me so that I can be courageous in that. And please, talk to either your son or your daughter, depending on who that is. Because I'm not getting through. And I'm wondering what to do. I want to tell you that when you are in a relationship where your voice is not heard, your perspective is not seen, and it's so repetitive that you have completely lost yourself because you're running after what somebody else wants and needs you to be, you are now in a very unhealthy relationship. Your God does not want you to lose you. He made you to be you. He loves you deeply and dearly. We do all sorts of things that are mean to each other. Because of our what? We're not going to blame. We're just going to be aware. It's really important. Lack of emotional maturity. If somebody is doing that to you, they lack emotional maturity. The ability to hear somebody else's side and come to agreements. You can get really mad that they don't know. And I would love for you to look at all the things that you don't know. So this is not about blaming. This is not about victimization. It's actually getting out of the victimization. Because if you're always doing it their way and it never works and you're never good enough and they're never happy with you and you just always feel shameful, bad about yourself, you're being victimized. You're actually being abused. That is so hard to hear. Because you're like, no, but they're a really, really good person. I know they are. I know. My ex still loved that man. I did not love the way he treated me. And I know it wasn't malicious. I know that he has some things that he wasn't ever taught. So was I. We were really young. But what I did find out is what it is to love me. And I'm going to say what I said yesterday. You cannot love anyone else more than you love yourself. So if you don't love yourself at all, then there's a problem, right? Because you can't love them. You can just be victimized by them. You can be controlled by them. That is not loving. That is not loving. So let's talk about this renegotiation. You have permission, by the way, to give people a chance to say, hey, this isn't okay. And I think we need to look at this differently. And if they rear up and if they make it your problem and your fault and all of that all the time, now you have awareness. You don't have to stay. So I took some pretty serious covenants and vows about marriage, right? And I really, really held on to them. And it wasn't just how he treated me. There was more that went on. There was a baby and an affair. And I took it really seriously. I could do this. I could love him enough for him to come to his senses and change and keep his family. I wanted him to have his kids. They loved him. They wanted him. All of that. And the reality is, I was being beat up as I was trying to love him. And guess what? I didn't love me. And guess what? My Father in heaven, who I made those covenants with, those promises at marriage, I witnessed to him. I promised that I would love, honor, and cherish. It was before God, right? Not just the husband. He never intended for me to be that dishonored and disrespected. I am his precious, precious daughter. And it was when I found that relationship and realized that just because the person I was in a relationship with wasn't pleased with me, that did not in any way mean that God was not pleased with me. I hadn't disappointed him. The reality was his son did not cherish his daughter. When I found out, we talked just, God teach me to love myself as much as you love me, right? When I learned that, I could make decisions based on love. I stayed in communication. I asked for agreements. Agreements were broken. There was no renegotiation. There was no thing. I was just supposed to get over stuff and not feel bad, not feel judgmental, not feel betrayed. I was just supposed to be loving and forgiving. And that wasn't loving to me. And so there was a moment where God himself, in a conversation that we were having in prayer, said, it is time, my sweetheart. There are big things I need you to do. As long as you believe what you believe about you, you cannot serve me. So I'm going to stand by. I'm going to help you and walk with you. But we need to learn what love is. And what I learned is that I had to experience what love wasn't. And he let me experience what love wasn't for as long as I needed to, until I decided that I wanted to know and experience what love was. Big difference. So let's talk about agreements for a second. Let's go the other way. I hope that helped anybody who is in an abusive, narcissistic relationship and you are trying your best. I hope that helps. If you would like some personal mentoring surrounding this, I can help you. I have walked this walk. I can help you do it with grace. Please contact me. All right, let's talk about good relationships. When someone comes to you and says, I can't meet the needs, I can't fulfill the requirements, I can't accomplish, create, or achieve what I said I would. When you are the one on the other side of that, Step one, you are going to feel frustrated, disappointed, upset, untrusting, burdened, confused, worried, uncertain. Those are possible things that you might feel if that's the situation. Is it okay if someone comes to you and tells you they cannot do what you wanted them to do, or that they agreed that they would do? Is it okay for you to feel disappointed, upset, confused, frustrated, untrusting, burdened? Is that okay? It is totally okay for you to feel let down. I'm kind of worried, like, how am I going to handle this now? So it's really important to say, oh, yep, this is what it feels like when I'm let down. When somebody tells you that they cannot meet the agreement, step one, honor what you feel. The reason for this is because if you don't, you're going to blame them. When we blame, we're not taking responsibility for our own emotions. Did you know that? If you go, oh my gosh, you just complicated my life. You should do this. When the blaming starts, you are not being responsible for the fact that you feel this, and that. You don't have to squash it. You don't have to say, never mind, I'm not going to feel. You can go, whew, okay. And you take those emotions, be aware of them, shelf them, stay present. Because the person that is coming to you, let's look on their side. They're possibly feeling guilt, shame, fear of talking to you. Or they could just be totally okay with it and just say, hey, I just need you to know. Either way, those are their emotions to handle. So for you to just dismiss the fact that you're feeling anything about being let down, not completely okay. For you to put all of your letdown on them, not okay at all. So your responsibility, your ability to respond to someone who comes to you and says, I can't do this way, is to shelf the emotions that you have, take a deep breath, and start negotiating. Step one, express gratitude. I am so grateful that you let me know this, because now I have the ability to choose something else. I'm so grateful that I know you can't fulfill this thing. So after you've honored your emotions, then express some gratitude, because what that does is any of the awkwardness coming at you of shame that they may have, or their own responsibility or guilt or worry, when you express gratitude, it diffuses all of that so that you can get into clear communication. But it's got to be real. You got to connect in and go, wow, it is really hard when I have let somebody down, to come to them and say, I can't do this for you, and I know it's going to put you in a bind. If you are aware that that's hard, then you can be really grateful that they loved you enough and they love themselves enough to talk to you. That makes you very safe to negotiate with. Now, you can then go back into negotiation. Okay, so you can't do this. Is there anything you can do so that I can know what to do with somebody else? Like, what do I need to do now? So my son agreed to empty the dishwasher. He fell asleep on the couch, and this morning the dishwasher is not emptied. When I told him it's probably a good idea for him to renegotiate with his stepdad, who he made the agreement with, he went into shame. He went into shame because when blame is thrown, or you are the bad one, or you let me down again, and all of the, like the lecture, right? We got lectures when we were kids. The only way to express appropriate amount of acknowledgement that you've done something wrong is to feel the appropriate amount of shame. That's how we were taught. That's why we don't want to negotiate, because we don't want to go and be shamed. Don't admit that you're wrong, because if you do, you have to feel all the shame that you've been trained to feel, right? The reality is, you're brave and you're courageous and you're trying to make it right. Trying to man up, if you will. So even if the other person blames you, throws junk at you, take a deep breath, love on yourself. I'm actually courageous because I'm trying to renegotiate. They are let down. It's totally okay for them to be let down. So after you hear they're let down, you can say, ready? What would you love to do about this? What would you love me to do? I'm so willing to make this right. What would you love? And then be really honest about whether or not you can meet that new expectation. Or you can offer and say, I can't do this, but I can do this. What do you think? If you're the one who's been let down, you are responsible for dealing with your disappointment, your upset, your frustration, your judgment, your criticism, your feelings of being dishonored, disrespected, dismissed, not valued, not cared for. All of those feelings that surface when somebody else lets you down, that is yours. Your responsibility to look at and go, is that the absolute truth? See, we're going to go back into the bully. I would love for you to consider what happens, maybe you're right, what happens to you when you've let somebody down. What happens to you when somebody has let you down? Go into those emotions a little bit. Discover what you do. And guys, look, if you blame somebody else, honor the fact that, oh gosh, that's what I do. I blame. I've really learned how to blame. That's interesting that that's how I handle it. I wonder where I learned that from. Like, who blamed me so I know I'm supposed to blame others? Huh. I actually can handle my own emotions. Maybe it's not their responsibility to make sure that I'm okay. Huh. Oh, guys. So emotional maturity is the key to emotional intimacy. What I desire for the most for you is to be healed. I would love for you to understand that it is okay. Whatever you're feeling is okay. And that there are some things that as you feel and you act from those feelings are not the most loving for you. And that you cannot love anybody else at a greater measure of capacity that you love yourself. So you got to give yourself grace. You got to explore for yourself. You got to show up for yourself. You got to listen to yourself. You got to validate your own feelings and your own perspectives. And then you start showing up really powerfully in other people's lives. And your relationships get really beautiful. So we're going to table this. We're going to go into blame tomorrow. I think we'll really actually peel that one apart. I love you. Thank you for being here. All right, everybody. I will see you tomorrow. Loves to you. Bye.